Welcome to the Made for Business show where Catholic moms come to learn how to build a business from peace while raising kids. Today we're talking about being the boss of your own company. Okay. And this episode is mostly going to be for those of you who have a team or even just one person that works for you. But if you're a one woman show, I want you to listen because when you're a one woman show and you wear all the hats and you do all the things, when you sit down to work, you tend to stack up all the hats at the same time, right? So you're like the boss and the marketing person and the director of operations. You're doing all the things at the same time. And I want you to begin wearing one hat at a time and being really clear about what that hat is. I want you to have business owner boss time where you're working on the business and thinking about the company and where it's going and what it needs. And then I want you to take that hat off and I want you to put on your marketing hat and do the marketing things. So listen to this episode even if you don't have a team, because I want you, even in the way that you are working, to work like you do have a team. And that will make the transition so much smoother. So for those of you who do have teams, today we're talking about how you need to be the boss. You need to decide where the ship is going, and you need to let your team do what they are good at. One of the things that's so difficult is when we are used to doing everything and everything is so close to our heart, it is very difficult to then give things to our team, to trust them, to let them make mistakes. And there's many things that we worry about when we have a team. And I'm going to go through some of those today, and I'm going to talk about how worrying about it in the way that most of us are is hurting your team and hurting the progress of your company. So the first thing I want you to challenge is, do you need to be in every meeting and involved in every decision? In the beginning, when you have one person that comes to work for you, you say, "Hi, I'm Sterling. This is my company. Here's what I want you to do." And you're making all the decisions and you have to meet with that person. Okay? But over time, that person learns how to do things and you may not need to meet as often. So I want you to check yourself. If this is you and you have one person, do you need to have a meeting with them as often as you do? Are your meetings filled with a lot of brainstorming and processing out loud? Now, if you like to be a verbal processor with somebody else and that's helpful for you, keep doing that. But I found that a lot of times I would get to a meeting, so I'd be doing kid life, right? Wrangling 3-year-olds and soothing 12-year-old hearts. And then I would pop to the meeting and I'd be like, "Oh, what are we talking about?" I'd have no idea what we were talking about. And then it would occur to me what we should be talking about. And then I would process things for the first time out loud in front of this person. Right? And we don't want to do that. You want instead to have an agenda for meetings and do boss thinking ahead of time so that you are having a more efficient pass down of the information to your team. Now, even still, I will brainstorm some things with my team because I really value their opinion. But there are still things that the boss, the owner, the visionary needs to decide before it hits the team. The team is never going to run the company. And let me tell you, sometimes I wish I could just be like, "Can you guys just make all the decisions?" That'd be really great. And I want them to make me feel good about the decisions. And I want some clarity. And I can feel it. It's very clear to me when I'm giving too much of the boss decision making to them. And it's not right. It's not efficient. Right? You have to decide some major things about the company, and then you can ask for input. So an example of that for us is we are moving from one membership for Catholic moms and we're breaking it down into 3. We'll have a weight loss one, a Catholic mom membership, and then a business membership. And I love this for a lot of reasons, but that is a decision that was an owner decision. Then I can take it to my team and say, "I want to do this. What do you think? Where are the holes? What's going to be difficult?" And my team and I will talk about how to structure it. We even kicked around information about pricing. To me, involving my team in pricing information is great. I'd love to get their input. I'm still going to be the one to decide though. So look at your meetings. Are they necessary? And are you doing too much brainstorming or processing? And you'll know the difference between, oh, I'm thinking about this for the first time, processing out loud brainstorming, versus when I come to a team meeting and say, hey, I want to implement this. I'd like your thoughts on, does this new membership need a Slack channel? Let's talk about the pros and cons. Literally brainstorming that would be on the agenda. That's how you know it feels different too. Like you've planned to talk about that with your team. So, do you need a meeting at all? That's one of my favorite questions. Do we need a meeting, or could we have just slacked each other a couple times? If there's a meeting, is there an agenda for the meeting? Who's setting the agenda for the meeting? For those of you who have an operations person, you should be meeting with your operations person, talking about the entire company, and then your operations person should probably be running every other meeting. Even if you're there, your operations person can be like, okay, based on what we talked about in our boss operations meeting, here's the agenda. I'm going to run it. And then you're there and you're asking questions, but it's very clear who's running the meeting. Now, again, that's a personal preference. You may choose that you want to make the agenda for all of the meetings. But I just want you to decide. Don't let your business happen to you. Don't let the team happen to you. You are the boss. Okay? So we know what we're talking about in meetings, and we're not processing things for the first time. Sometimes we have new ideas come up, and then I just want you to write it down and be like, that's a great idea. I'm going to sit and think about that before we talk about it as a team. Do you need a meeting? What are you talking about in the meeting? We're not processing things for the first time in the meeting. Okay. And then for those of you who have an operations person, I want you to let them do your job. If you haven't read the book Rocket Fuel by Gino with a G, don't remember his last name. Rocket Fuel though, it's orange. It talks about visionaries and integrators. And it says every company needs a visionary and an integrator. If you're listening to this, it's most likely that you are the visionary. Most entrepreneurs get into entrepreneurship because they are visionaries and they need to go find an integrator to help them run the company. My husband is actually the opposite. He is an integrator. He does not necessarily love being an entrepreneur and have a lot of vision. So he pulls me in for that. But he likes working for himself and having time, money, freedom. So he chooses to be an entrepreneur, even though the truth is he really is an integrator. He's an engineer. He really loves details and organizing information. But if you say, hey, where is this company going? That's a struggle for him. It's a struggle for him to do that, just like it's a struggle for me to be the integrator. So you might be an integrator. I just see it way less often. Almost all of the women in my society and in the mastermind are visionaries, and they need to find an integrator. Okay, so your integrator is probably your ops person. It could be your VA. If you just happen to get one that's really organized, that could be your integrator. So you come up with the dream, the vision, all the fun things, and then you and the integrator create the plan. But if you've hired an ops person, I want you to let that person really spread their wings and fly. Let them do what they're good at. Visionaries think the visionary stuff is fun and the integrator stuff isn't fun. And so we feel bad giving them all of that stuff to do, like that we get to do the fun things and then they only have to do the boring things. But I promise you it's the opposite. The integrator loves doing that stuff. The integrator loves being organized, loves pulling all that information together. And they feel like stressed out and uncomfortable when they have to do the vision stuff. They're like, well, I don't really want to do that. And so don't hold your integrator back, your ops person back, or maybe your executive assistant or your VA, that person. Let them fly and do what they're really good at. And that might be doing more research for you. It might be setting the agenda for your team meetings. It might be running other members of your team without you. Did you know you could do that? Did you know you don't need to talk to everybody? Your operations person can run the other people in your team. You don't need to meet with them all the time. You can ask them to meet and then make a proposal to you and say, hey, here's our draft plan. And then you scan through it, tweak it a little bit, and send it back and go, great, do that plan. So you can still have involvement in what everyone is doing, and you can still be the decision makers for even most of it. But you don't necessarily need to be the one who creates that first draft of the plan or does the research. And when you're going from a one-woman show and the business is your baby and you love it, you want to do the research because you don't want to make any mistakes. But here's what I want to tell you about that. Generally, your integrator, your ops person, this person with this other kind of brain will make less mistakes than you. And so let's say you are researching quiz technology. I was just doing this for the mastermind. What quiz software is out there? What are the pros and cons? Which one should we use? Okay. You might want to do that research because one, it's probably fun. It's kind of fun to research that and look at all the websites. Two, you feel this pressure like, oh, I want to make the right decision. Really, it's just those two things. Sometimes I think we avoid our boss work or our creating content work that only we can do by doing these level things too. We hide in that because it feels a lot safer to research websites that allow you to have a quiz that you can use for marketing rather than filming videos for your program or writing a book. Instead, I want you to let your integrator, your ops person do that for you and just make a recommendation. They will probably do it faster. They will probably do it better. And let's say we even let them pick. We just go, I'm just going to trust you. You pick. They might be wrong. But you might have been wrong, right? There are many things that I've decided in my business that I'm like, that probably wasn't the best decision. Or now I don't like that software anymore. But I'm telling you, because the integrator's job is to research and accumulate information and make sense of it, it's actually less likely that they will be wrong in making those decisions about your business. We want you in your genius zone as much as possible. And I think all of this comes down to an identity issue of I am a CEO. I am the boss. I run this company. You can love everyone who works for you. You can be friends with them, right? But you are the captain of the ship. You decide where it goes. And then you want to empower your team and trust them to do what they are good at. But it's really difficult to empower your team and trust them to do what they're good at if you don't think you're a good boss, if you don't think you know where you're going, if you don't believe that you're a CEO, if you still think you're kind of a mom who's playing business dress up. We need you to have a deep down identity. I am a boss. I decide where this company is going, and I'm going to build a solid team and trust them. Then all the rest of it gets a lot easier when you just believe that one thing, right? I am a CEO. I am the boss. And I don't actually love the thought, I know what I'm doing. I really like the thought, I know what I want to try next. Because that gives me flexibility to, I don't know if this thing I'm going to try is going to work out and it's going to be the best thing that we've done, but I feel really confident this is what we're going to try. That brings me into that boss CEO mentality. And if you want to grow your company to multiple 6 figures to 7 figures, this is the skill that you need. You need to have the belief that you are in charge, and you need to build a team that you trust, and then trust them. Really let them fly. You hired good people. Let them do what they're going to do. I watched a clip of Gary Vaynerchuk the other day, and somebody began to ask a hiring question. He said, I've been hiring. Let me ask you a question. And Gary just cuts him off. And he says, just hire them. Hire quickly. And he said, you're not going to know. You're not going to know if they're great. He said, all of you, your ego is tied to being a good hirer. And he said, you're just going to need to hire people and see what they do. Get them in, see what they do. It may not be a good fit, fire quickly. And he said, but a lot of you, your ego is caught up in picking right. And I thought that was so interesting. So I want you're going to start building your team, and some people may not be a good fit and you may need to let them go. That doesn't need to mean anything. We see if people are a good fit by watching them work. But then when you have someone that's great, trust them to do what they're good at. Just let them do it. Don't micromanage them. You don't need to be involved in all of the small things. You don't need to get stuck in the weeds. This is what it looks like to grow up in your business. Okay? So, even if you're a team of one, know when you are making owner decisions and know when you are just executing one of the other roles. Don't smush them together. Your work will be much less efficient if you're trying to think of high-level boss things while you're trying to make social posts. Separate that time out. Okay? And for those of you that manage one person, just look for opportunities to smooth that out. Can I empower them more? Do we have to talk about everything? When we meet, do I know what we're meeting about? Have I processed it myself first? And then if you have a bigger team, do you need to be in all of the meetings? I mean, first of all, do we need meetings at all? And then do you need to be in all of them? Can you empower your team to meet with each other and just present things to you and say, here's our plan. Do you like it? And then you can tweak it and say, yep, go execute on that. All right, ladies, this is what business looks like. Growing to the next stage is uncomfortable. But if you can build this belief that you are the boss, you are the CEO, you will get to spend way more time doing what God created you to do, being in your genius zone. And isn't that a special thing? All right, ladies, thank you so much for listening. I'm praying for you. Get to work and have a blessed day.